Welcome to the news for the week of 29 November 2020. And we're back from the Thanksgiving break. I was getting like all shaky because I hadn't done the news in a week and it was starting to get, sweating and waking up at night, like worried. Today, hacked DNA leads to three-headed pig dogs. Yeah, I made that up. Slack gets sold. Magecart DNS compromised at GoDaddy, and WantedbyFeds goes to jail. All this and Ryan Corey from Cybrary is on this episode of Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News. Do you know where your organization's crown jewel data is, whose data it is, what it contains, and if it's flagged, tagged, and classified accurately? Defense in Depth requires discovery in depth. At BigID, they help organizations uncover dark data, classify sensitive and regulated data, meet compliance requirements, and take action for data on-prem, in the cloud, and everywhere in between. Learn more about how Discovery in-depth can change the way enterprise organizations find, classify, and protect sensitive data at securityweekly.com/BigID.
All right. There's a new Magecart attack out there. If you aren't familiar with Magecart, it's a term that is used to refer to some APTs that primarily attack e-commerce. I mean, that's pretty much where they've been around. And more particularly, they kind of attack this with skimming tools. So they're always trying to get credit card data, whatever. This new approach that they're doing now uses post message in order to push an iframe. So they take a PayPal iframe and they push it into the checkout process. This is a kind of interesting approach. This report came from Sansec, which focuses on preventing this sort of digital skimming and credited the find to Affable Kraut. The attack apparently hides code inside of an image on the server of the store. So it's a pre-compromised server. So there's more to this than just some kind of elaborate push. You're having to actually compromise it, put this on there. And they use steganography to hide this inside of an image. So finally, somebody's using steganography in some kind of sexy way. Everybody always loved to talk about steganography when I was teaching forensics all the time. And it was like, yeah, but you don't see this that much, but here it is. The tool grabs the data from the form and then it steals it. But what it does is it grabs it off the checkout form and then it substitutes it back onto the fake PayPal form. So it's pre-filled out, which encourages you to go ahead and click OK, right? I mean, that's a pretty easy, scary kind of thing. So that's a new one. Another hacker, this time WantedbyFeds, who is also known as Timothy Dalton Vaughn. I don't know if he's named after the Timothy Dalton actor or maybe the other way around. I don't know. But anyway, Timothy Dalton Vaughn was sentenced to 95 months in federal prison. He had pled guilty in November of last year. He was a member of a group called Apophis Squad, which basically conducts international swatting attacks on a large number of schools, and they went after various other organizations. The indictment reported that he had conducted swatting attacks in at least 86 different school districts. And typically, what they did was they would contact them and report there were armed students and explosives. That was all reminiscent of the Columbine shootings back in 1999. The group, of course, this would get, like a massive response from local agencies and cause all kinds of chaos. The group had also reported hijacked flights. So another thing that they did was contact airlines and say that there were bombs on flights and all this kind of stuff, which again caused, total chaos. The 95 months was for child pornography. So they ended up charging him with possession of child pornography and distribution of child pornography, got 95 months for that. The hacking and swatting charges all added up to 60-month sentences, and they then assigned them to all be served concurrently. So basically 95 months. Switzerland has found that another Swiss encryption, yes, another one, was also working with and or owned by the U.S. government CIA. The first report, which came out earlier this year, back in February, was that Crypto AG, a very famous crypto company, was secretly owned by the CIA and the German intelligence service, BND. Crypto AG was supplying crypto equipments to governments around the world for a long, long time. And basically what this did was let the CIA and the B&D break all these codes and read the messages that were being sent over these supposedly secure systems. Well, it turns out that another Swiss crypto firm, this one called OmniSec, was pretty much the exact same thing. So OmniSec and its original parent company, Gretag, produced voice, fax, and other types of encryption systems up until 2 years ago. Apparently, it was also set up by the CIA and B&D for the same purpose and contained the ability to break encrypted data easily. So if you're still using old Swiss crypto equipment, you might want to get that checked out if you don't want somebody reading it. DNS redirect attacks were based on tricking GoDaddy employees into turning over domains to the attackers. Once the attackers had control of the domains, they could easily redirect the DNS pointers to other servers. So earlier this year, GoDaddy revealed that 28,000 web hosting accounts had been compromised a year earlier, and they didn't discover it until April this year. But the attack this time started on the 13th of November. And the first part of the attack was directed at Liquid.com, which is a cryptocurrency trading platform. The attack then used DNS redirection to gain control of internal Liquid accounts. So they were basically putting up fake sites and getting people to, when they were trying to do like email and whatnot, to end up over on a fake site. They put their credentials in, they get more credentials. NiceHash was also targeted in the attack. And Krebs, which is where this article came from, found that other sites seemed to have been redirected as well. GoDaddy said it was only a small number and that they had locked them all down. If you're using any service, I don't care if it's GoDaddy or anybody else, you probably want to put regular checks and alerts on your DNS, no matter who you work with. Salesforce is allegedly looking to purchase Slack. The purchase was valued at around $24 billion and was reported by the Wall Street Journal. Slack is a big competitor of Microsoft Teams and has always targeted the user who kind of wanted to stay away from the big corporate products and has been, heavily used during the pandemic. But Salesforce is looking to possibly compete with Microsoft Teams. It was what the speculation was on this, in order to get into this business. Obviously, a lot of people who use Slack wouldn't be a big fan of Salesforce purchasing their favorite communications platform. But Salesforce is always rumored to be about to buy something. I mean, how many times have you seen that Salesforce was going to buy something? Like LinkedIn, Twitter, all those things where it was like Salesforce is going to buy Twitter. It's going to be the largest deal ever. None of that has ever happened. So who knows? I mean, maybe they will buy it. I don't know. They have bought. It would be the largest buy they had made. So I like Slack, and if they buy it, I would probably still use it. But I pretty much use every platform in existence, regardless of who owns it anyway. So, whatever. This one was too weird not to report. I had to report this. There was a Nature Journal article. So the Israeli Interdisciplinary Center, Herzliya, and the Ben Gurion University of the Negev talked about cyber attacks that they reproduced in a lab, which go after the DNA procurement process. So apparently there's not very much security around these processes. Then the software that is used for the creation of synthetic DNA has no way to secure the electronic integrity of the orders. So when they put this order through to build synthetic DNA, it could be modified. So if an attacker modified the order, well, you want chimeras? That's how you get chimeras, I'm telling you. That's how you get three-headed PigDogs. No kidding. I mean, that's they grow out of the lab. The researchers said they were able to insert obfuscated DNA, which was encoded with a toxic peptide, and there was no detection by the creation system, and that would have created a pathogen in a synthetic DNA being produced. So this is a pretty scary thing for the medical community. So as ever, we need to put more security in place to protect these processes. And this was another one of those processes that never considered security because nobody would think about doing these kind of things. Is that we're going to talk about that engineering process with Ryan in a little bit, but I mean that was exactly where I was on that. Milton Security released MAP 2.0, which is a threat hunting tool that they call AI-assisted threat hunting, which according to the story uses AI and machine learning in response to a growing skills gap, which is why I brought this story up. I don't know much about the product, and I immediately get suspicious when I start seeing AI and ML written all over it. But the story does lead to us talking about the skills gap in the security industry and how that skills gap between IT and security exists. And that's been developed over many, many, many years of IT development. And we are starting, to need tools like this, and we need more people. So when we return, Ryan Corey, the CEO and co-founder of Cybrary, is going to join us to talk about just those very things. So stick around.
Increased attacks, skill gaps, talent shortages, expanding attack surfaces. Cybersecurity and IT teams face these real issues every day. Cybrary for Teams is the #1 NIST-aligned DoD 8140 and 8570 compliance certification and skills training platform. Cybrary for Teams makes managing teams easier, guarantees measurable training outcomes, and keeps your team's skills sharp to meet today's biggest security threats. And did you know 96% of the Fortune 500 have employees training on Cybrary? Cybrary for Teams. Now you know. Visit cybrary.it/solved to solve your team training challenges.
I think it must be narcissistic of me, imagine that. But I end up sitting at my camera chatting with someone, and we're just talking. And I realize all of a sudden that this person is like the CEO of a major company, and I'm like, oh no, why do they let me do this stuff? And I wonder what I might have just said, But yesterday I had a fun 30 minutes talking to Ryan Corey about, all sorts of things. But in particular, we started talking about something of interest to me, which is the skills and talent gap problem. So please welcome to Security Weekly News, the CEO and co-founder of Cybrary, Ryan Corey. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Doug. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it was
glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It was cool talking to you. And like I said, I really do have that. I start talking to somebody, and most of the people in this community have very similar interests. It's like, so we were just talking, and I start thinking, wow, this guy's he's just like the CEO of Cybrary and all this stuff, and I'm sitting here just rattling on about some nonsense. I'm like, oh well, but that's it's all good, right?
It was good. It got us to the right place. So yeah, I have no regrets.
All right. So we don't have a lot of time on this show, but one of the things I want to talk to you about was what is the skills gap and talent gap? I mean, those two terms that you brought up, and I thought that was really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think that most people's response would be that they're the same thing, but they're definitely not. And we went in, Cybrary is now 3 million users. We grow by a couple thousand new users joining us every day, which is awesome. We went into the process thinking that the talent gap was going to be the thing that we're going to try to work against. And so everybody hears about the 3 million jobs or the 5 million or whatever it is that are unfilled. And so we felt like we were going down that path. But it turns out there's two different things that look very, extremely different from one another. One, of course, the talent gap is not enough people flowing into the industry. And we know that we have that problem. But what we're actually more excited about and geek out about is the skills gap in an organization. And the skills gap to us, essentially how it's different is, for a long time, we've said that security should be everybody's job. So anybody that's in an organization that touches any part of the technological delivery process of a product, service, or application, we would like that person to have the right skills to be able to do their job securely. And that's actually the problem that we're solving and the thing that we're spending a lot of time on. So we did an analysis, a survey rather, of somewhere in the ballpark of about 3,500 respondents, and we found, no surprise, that organizations and their team members have a general lack of confidence in their ability to secure their organization, and that tends to stem from both A, the lack of confidence in one's own skill set, but then B, the lack of confidence of the people sitting down the hall from them that are working on their things. And so, you brought this up first yesterday, and it's that common frustration of a CISO that just is basically treated as a checkbox at the end of the day, right? They're treated as, this thing needs to get out the door tomorrow, go secure it. And that's like super frustrating to them. And I know you said that you've actually lived that problem before as well.
Yeah, I've been calling that the engineering problem for like a long time, and there's really a couple of parts to the engineering problem. One is just the make it work. So forever and a day, the idea for AppSec or app dev or whatever was just make it work, meet the specs and get it out the door, and right. And there was also often promises, and the other engineering problem is not designing for like safety. Because it was about, engineers don't expect somebody to try to intentionally run off the bridge. I mean, that was just like a foreign concept for a developer. Was like, why would somebody do this? Why would you try to break this application? It's for the good of everyone. And so I think trying to train people up into that and get them into that mindset of security needs to be embedded in this process is a really challenging thing.
So how do you do it is the question.
That was my question.
Yep. So how do you do it? And so this is we're in a different time now. We can do things a lot differently from the kind of old way of doing them. And so, if a CISO previously wanted to address their, like, any sort of skills gap that they may think exists and they don't even necessarily have hard evidence of, then we go ship somebody off to a 1 week class somewhere for $8,000 or something like that, which, great courses and great people there. But the CISO doesn't walk away with any transparency, or the security leadership, I should say, doesn't walk away with any transparency into the skill sets in the team. So now if you think about it, okay, well, we're in this different world where we can put somebody into a virtual environment. We can assess their skills. We can do this across at scale as well because of the online applications and platforms like Cybrary. So you put them into a virtual environment, you assess their skills, and all of a sudden you have this clear picture of an individual and a clear picture because of the reporting that you have of your entire organization's actual skill set. So there's no more guesswork in how we go about this. And then it's also, easy at that point. If you have a report like that, you can kind of think the build versus buy mentality of, do I build those skills with training, or do I actually just is it too big of a gap? Do I need to go find somebody who can do that job? And the NIST NICE framework has actually done a pretty good job of outlining the skills that pretty much anybody across an IT role that's going to be touching a product, service, or application, what are the skill sets that those people need from a security standpoint to do their job securely? And that's kind of the guide that we used, and why this type of thing is so manageable and so doable now. And so that's what we're geeking out about, man. It's been a fun ride, and we've seen a pretty thorough adoption of it, especially over the last couple of years. We've had a good couple of years.
How do you get like if I'm an app dev, how do you get me from that position of this is just security, just another pain on my plate that I have trouble conceptualizing because there's so much to it? And I may be a developer and I code, and I mean, I'm good at solving those problems, but I'm not a hacker. I don't think like a hacker. I'm not always trying to break my product. How do you get me from that, oh no, not another thing, and how many weeks would you like me to add to the development process for this, to, okay, I'm embedding security. So how do I get there?
Well, for one, bake it in up front, right? So give the person the skill set that they need up front. But two, that's often been kind of the challenge. And so where we were before, it's like, okay, well, wait, am I going to send this developer to a CISSP course or a CEH course? Is that going to give us the solution that we need? And so that was never really a thing. But now that this type of training can be bite-sized, it can be micro. And so as opposed to having to go in and take a week-long class or even a 2-day, 3-day class, you can actually put some sort of micro nuggets of learning in front of someone and have them accomplish that in really bite size. And I know, we listen to this show. I listen to podcasts every day. I know that I make at least 30 minutes of time on my normal day to learn something new. And so that more bite-sized consumption is definitely, it makes it more manageable and just easier to palate and tolerate.
I think that's an expectation that's coming out. I've noticed that. I mean, I was just recently taking a Cisco class, and I was having to digest it in smaller chunks than I used to. I think that's part of a sort of modernization, because I used to go take these, and I used to teach these 1-week boot camps. It was just brutal. I used to teach CISSP. I used to teach CCE, and you go to these boot camps and it's just, 12 hours a day, and we're going to pound this into your head. And I found when I was taking this class, it was like, I'm just trying to digesting this in like little 30-minute chunks. And I got more out of it that way than if I sat there and said, I'm going to spend 8 hours today trying to listen to this drone on and on and on. I mean, do you think that is a modern thing? Or is it just my attention span evaporating?
Yeah, right. No, it is, for sure. Like, I obviously went to school and then undergraduate and a little bit of the graduate degree program before dropping out because I had a company that was growing pretty fast. and then so like that old way of learning, it didn't honestly work that well for me. And so when I went back to or when I started kind of winding down at the company that I was at, which is a IT and cybersecurity training company, I really got aggressive with like podcasts is really what did it for me. And so these micro kind of chunks of learning of 15 minutes, 30 minutes, that kind of thing, it was so consumable for me, an ADD guy.
Yep.
Who's always had trouble kind of locking in on something. And so it works extremely well for me. And that's kind of how we model the Cybrary now too, because of that experience.
That's great. I mean, I two things I want to see more of it. I lost faith in the lecture process. So when I went to school, it was all the lecture process. So you went to a lecture and Dr. So-and-so got up in front of the room and talked for an hour. And then, you went, and I've done that. I taught computer science, lecturing, and I've taught calculus, and all of that, I lost faith in it. I was like, I don't think people learn anything from this. I think it's just a waste of everybody's time. And I started putting all my classes into digestible chunks. So one thing I would like to see more people doing is trying to sort of downsize that into smaller pieces. And the other one I would like to see is I would like to see more crossover between things like Cybrary and the university, because there's other ways to learn that still should get you degrees and still should get you qualified, that don't have to be this just locked in traditional model from a long time ago.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add about your survey?
No, just the I don't think that the fear or the lack of confidence surprised me at all. It was very plain as day in there that they just don't have a confidence level in their organization's ability to defend.
I mean, I see that. I sit there and get asked those questions too, and people are just, basically they're very concerned. They don't want to say that because that's the other problem with this is it's like talking to your doctor. It's like people don't tell their doctor stuff. Like when they go, "How many cigars do you smoke a day?" It's like, "Cigars? Why? How dare you, sir? I was out running this morning. I wasn't smoking a cigar." But I mean, same thing. I mean, I think when they don't want that to get out, and I get it. If that gets out in the press and you say, "Oh, Bank X is insecure," their management said so, it's like doomsday. I mean, all your customers are going to head for the exits. So I'm glad that you're trying to do something about that. It would be very helpful. I know you got to go. Thank you, Ryan Corey from Cybrary, for joining us on the news, and I appreciate your time. And
good chatting with you, Doug. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Glad to have you here.
See ya.
All right.
Cheers.
And finally, if you're like me and you had to write a script to delete Cyber Monday emails, God, I thought it was an attack on my system. I think my script, I looked this morning, my script had deleted over 1,000 emails that had Cyber Monday in the subject since last Wednesday. In the United States, if you don't know, the Friday after Thanksgiving, which was last week, is called Black Friday due to the volume of traffic in stores seeking to get that deep discount on a PlayStation 5 or whatever. Well, due to the pandemic, sales were down about 20% from last year, which didn't sound that bad to me, but I guess 20% of lots of money is still 20% of lots of money. But it did mean increases in online traffic. I don't like shopping, and I really don't like shopping or going to stores ever. So I guess that's why Cyber Monday people were after me, but I elected not to buy anything on Cyber Monday anyway, just because you sent me so much stuff. But today is Giving Tuesday, so try and donate some to some worthy cause, and Drinking Thursday is coming up, so you may want to jump on that, and I can certainly get behind that. But that is the news for now in the time of plague. I'm Doug White. Thanks to Ryan Corey, and thanks to all of you for joining us for this episode of Security Weekly News. Stop it with the conspiracies, okay? I mean, really.